Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to our weekly Pirkei Avos class. This week, we will conclude Pirkei Avos again for the third time this summer, third of four times, and we conclude it with chapter 6, which, as we've said, is not really a part of the Mishnah. Chapter 6 is different than the rest of the Pirkei Avos. Pirkei Avos, the book of Avos, is one of the tractates of Mishnah, and that would be the first 5 chapters of Avos. The 6th chapter was added later, and it's what we call a brisa. It's on the outside of the Mishnah. That's what the word brisa means, outside. That's why the words begin with the words of chapter 6 begin with Shanu Chachamim Bilshon HaMishnah. The sages taught in the language of the Mishnah. So it's not actually Mishnah. That's why most people don't do this. But if you want to give the accurate wording for chapter 6, you would say Perek Vav Brisa Beis, not Mishnah Beis, even though that's commonly said that way. So it's not a big deal. But Brisa Beis, and that's what we're going to do today. Chapter 6, section number 2. Chapter 6 is dedicated to the value of Torah study, to the method of how to study Torah, to the qualities necessary in order to study Torah, and to the qualities one has through studying Torah. So it's all about Torah. It's also known as Kinyan Torah, the chapter which talks about how to acquire Torah. And Torah is the essence of who we are. Torah is the essence of our identity. And so it's obviously a worthwhile endeavor to spend time studying about how to acquire Torah properly. And I want to jump to Mishnah number 2, or Brisa number 2. So chapter 6, Brisa 2. Bob, you have the page number in the blue in the sitter? 292 in the sitter. That's where you're following along. Yes, that's funny. All right. So let's read it. Amar Rav Yehoshua ben Levi, the great sage Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi said, B'chal yom v'yom, every single day, bas kol yotzes mehar chorev, a heavenly voice emanates from Har Chorev. What's Har Chorev? Mount Sinai. One of the 10 names that Mount Sinai has. Fine. Umachrezes v'oimeres, this heavenly voice, which emanates from Har Sinai, proclaims and says, Oy lohem labrios me'el boino shel Torah. Woe to the creations for the shame of Torah. Woe to the creations for the shame of Torah. What exactly is being said? What exactly is the shame of Torah that this heavenly voice is talking about? So the Tiferes Yisrael in this commentary says this is a continuation of the last Mishnah, or the last Brisa. Because over there in the last Brisa, the words of Rav Meir was, whoever studies Torah, zoichel edvarim harbe, merits many, many good things, one who studies Torah. Says the Tiferes Yisrael, the continuation is that someone may ask, why is it that we see otherwise? We see that the Jewish people often suffer. So how do we reconcile the suffering with the statement in Mishnah number 1, or Brisa number 1, which says you will merit many great things? So that's where Yeshua ben Levi comes and says the suffering, or the lack of the blessings described in Brisa 1, is because the people did not study Torah as they should. They may have studied Torah to some degree, but not as they should. As the Brisa goes on to say, Shekol mi she'eino oisik b'Torah, anyone who does not toil in Torah, Nikra Nazuf, is called a Nazuf. Nazuf is a shamed one, or how does it translate Nazuf in the censure? It's called a Nazuf. As again, back to the commentary, it's Tiferes Yisrael, who says it's a person who's been distanced from his Father in heaven. That's what Nazuf is, distance, censured. Shenamar, as the Pasuk says in Mishlei, Nezem Zahav be'af Chazir. Nezem Zahav, which means a golden ring in the nose of a pig. Obviously, this is a metaphor for the beauty of Torah and the golden, the precious gem that Torah is. But when it's misused, or when it's not properly handled, it's comparable to a gem in the mouth or the nose of a pig. Isha Yafa V'saras Tam, a beautiful woman, V'saras Tam, but lacking flavor. We'll see what that means. Okay, lacks discretion. Okay. In other words, there's something beautiful. There's a cherished entity here, but it's not being valued properly. The Torah, which is cherished and beautiful, is not being valued properly. And this heavenly voice laments this. And this heavenly voice laments this every single day. V'omer. Furthermore, the pasuk quoting another pasuk. Another pasuk from Shmois. V'haluchas maseh Elokim hema. The luchas, the tablets, were the work of God, the handcraft of Hashem. V'amichtav michtav Elokimu. And the writing was the writing of Hashem. Chorus al haluchas, engraved on the luchas. By the way, this is referring to the first set of luchas, because the second set of tablets was the stones were collected and brought up by Moshe. The first set of tablets were divine entirely. The stones were divine and the writing was divine. The second set of tablets, the stone was from Moshe and the writing was divine. But the word over here that it says is chorus al haluchas, which means engraved on the luchas. And here we have an idea which we find commonly in the Talmud, that the same word can be pronounced in different ways, the same word with different vowels. Let's remember, in the Torah there are no vowels. So the word charus can be read charus, which means engraved, or with slightly different vowels can be read cherus, which means freedom. And both interpretations are true. You come across that in the Torah, that sometimes several interpretations of the same word all can be true. The simple meaning certainly is engraved, but a deeper meaning over here is freedom. She'ein lecha ben chayrin, because there is no such thing as freedom. Elami sha'oisik b'talmud Torah. You want to know freedom, how to achieve a state of freedom? One who studies Torah is free. Furthermore, v'chol mi sha'oisik b'Torah, and anyone who studies Torah, harei ze mis'ala. A person who studies Torah is elevated. Shenemar, and here we have an interesting way to derive that from the pasuk, and it talks about three cities that the Jewish people traveled to in the desert. So you have 42 stops in the desert. Here are 3 of the stops. One of them is called Matana, the first stop, and from there they traveled to Nachaliel, and from there they traveled to Bamos. So from Matana to Nachaliel to Bamos. So again, simply read, that means 3 different cities. Matana, Nachaliel, Bamos. I don't know, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. But as when it comes to Torah, everything has layers and layers of meaning. So to over here, the 3 cities symbolize 3 steps in one service of Hashem. The first is Matana. What does Matana mean? A gift. What is the ultimate gift? Torah. We say Matan Torah. A person, it begins with the gift of Torah. From there, we move on to Nachaliel, which is a Nachala, is an inheritance. When a person takes the gift of Torah and turns it into their heritage, makes it their identity. What's the difference between Yerusha and Nachala? Firstly, it could be interchangeable. But I think the difference is Yerusha is an inheritance, and Nachala is like a heritage, which is more Nachlas Avos. Yerusha is very much specifically like something that I received as a inheritance from a parent. Nachala, I think, is more connected to like a deep family connection. This is the Nachlas Avos. This is the heritage, that's been belongs to our family, I believe. But at point it says mimatana, from the gift of Torah to Nachaliyah, to being one's inheritance. In other words, it really belongs to them. And from there to bamos. Bamos means rising upward. From there you rise upward of a person allows, when a person incorporates the Torah into their life, from the gift of Torah to the inheritance of Torah, allows them to rise. That's the idea of bamos. So that's the significance of the three verses. All right, this is the Mishnah. And there's different questions we can have on this Mishnah, but I want to start with, before getting to the information regarding Torah that this Mishnah shares. The Mishnah shares an idea which I think is pretty fascinating, worth discussing, and that is the idea of a baskol. It starts by saying, Rishon ben Levi says, a baskol, which is translated as a heavenly voice. Perhaps one of the technical translation of baskol is like an echo. Baskol literally means the daughter of sound, so it's like the secondary sound. But it means an echo or a heavenly voice emanates from Har Choreh, from Mount Sinai, saying, woe to the shame of Torah. Yeah. One of the miracles is correct. It says by the giving of the Ten Commandments, it says in the Torah portion of Eschana, it says, Kol Godav Ol Yosef. It was a voice that didn't end. And the Talmud translates, one of the explanations of that is that it didn't have a baskol, it didn't have an echo. And then alongside that, we have this idea of an echo that emanates from that very same Mount Sinai every single day. Right, so now there is an echo. The Ten Commandments didn't have an echo, but this baskol happened. So, we can read this Mishnah and kind of like, think of it very, without really connecting to it. All right, some sort of heavenly voice. Let's move on. It's just another one of those mystical statements from the Talmud. Or we can address the question here, which is, what is the significance of this voice? There's a heavenly voice that emanates from Sinai. Did anyone hear that voice today? Every day. If the answer is, as it likely is, in all the previous times I've taught this, is that no one heard that voice. So what's the value of that voice? And if there's no value to the voice, so then why not a real voice? Why not let there be a heavenly voice which everyone hears? What exactly is the significance of this heavenly voice? So, and this is not the only time the Talmud talks about, or the Medrash talks about, a heavenly voice. This idea of a baskol, a heavenly voice emanating, is mentioned in other places as well. In each of these situations, the question becomes, what is the significance of a heavenly voice if it's not heard, and if it's not heard, how is that supposed to inspire us? So that's the first question we have to ask. And to answer that question, I want to share from a Gemara. It's Gemara Megillah. The Gemara Megillah talks about the prophet Daniel and shares a episode described in the book of Daniel, specifically chapter 10, verse number 7. Chapter 10, verse number 7 in the book of Daniel. And over there, the pasuk says like this: V're'isi ani, Daniel says, and I saw, levadi, I saw myself, es hamara, this vision. So he saw a vision, angels. He saw very powerful vision, imagery that he saw. V'ha'anoshim asher hayu imi, and the people who were standing with me, loy ra'u es hamara. They did not see what I saw. I saw these angels, and they didn't see it. Avot charada gedola nafla aleihem. But a great fear fell upon them. So they didn't see it, but there was a fear that descended upon those people with me. I saw what was going on. They didn't see it, but they felt fear. Vayivruchu meheichavi. So much so they ran away, they scattered out of fear. So that's what the Gemara brings down this puzzle. The Gemara starts by asking, Maninu Anoshim, who are these people that Daniel says, the people who are with me? And he answers, anyone want to guess who are the people standing with Daniel? Who were from that era in time? Who are some of the other great Jews of the time? So, Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah. Rabbi Yirmiyah answers. Some people say Rabbi Rabbi answers. These three people are Chagai, Zechariah, and Malachi. Also often referred to as the last three of the prophets. So Chagai, Zechariah, and Malachi are standing with Daniel. We're not talking about run-of-the-mill people. We're talking about prophets. So much so, the Gemara goes on to say, in some ways, they were greater than him. In other words, in some ways, Daniel was greater than them. In some ways, they were greater than Daniel. Why? They are greater than Daniel, because they were prophets, and Daniel was not a prophet. What does that mean, Daniel is not a prophet? We usually record Daniel as one of the prophets. The answer is that they were sent with prophecy, with messages of prophecy to convey to the Jewish people. Daniel was not. It's a good question. It's a very educated question. Maybe. The point is that he is not considered to be a prophet in the sense of having a prophecy to convey. His book, the book of Daniel, is one of the 24 books of Torah. But the definition of a prophet in this sense is someone who was given a message to convey to the Jewish people. And Daniel doesn't have it. So in that sense, they're greater than him. On the other hand, he's greater than them because he saw, clearly he had the spiritual fortitude to see this vision that they could not see. All this, we're going to bring this back to our Mishnah, don't worry. So the question the Gemara then asks, and this is a key question, if they didn't see what Daniel saw, my time ibisu. So why are they afraid? They didn't see anything. He saw it. They don't see anything, and they seem to be more afraid. And the Gemara answers, and this is an answer which is very important for not just this exact story, but for many stories. The Gemara says, even though they didn't see it, mazlaihu chazi, their mazel saw it. So here you have a very fascinating idea, and that is that sometimes you may not see something, but your mazel sees it. What is your mazel? We often talk about, I've shared this in various contexts, the word mazel tov, which is translated as congratulations. Mazel tov is not congratulations is not an accurate translation of the word mazel tov. Mazel actually means, firstly, it could be like a sign. A mazel could be your celestial sign, some sort of celestial connection. The mazel also has to do with drawing down energy. Mazel nozel means drawing down. Be that however exact translation you're going to use for the word mazel, it means some sort of divine connection that I have. So when I wish someone mazel tov, you're really saying, may you have that divine connection of energy. Other people think mazel tov means good luck. We don't believe in luck. We don't believe in luck. In fact, mazel is almost like the opposite of luck. Luck implies randomness. Mazel means it's nothing random. Mazel means your unique flow of energy that you have. Yes, correct. It says every blade of grass has a mazel. In other words, everything has its energy, which is given intentionally to it. In a way, again, mazel is the opposite of luck. So again, people may think mazel means good luck. But here you have this idea that, so the topic of mazel is its own fascinating topic. But what we see over here is that a person may not physically see something, but their neshama sees something. Your soul senses something. And more than that, more important than that, is that the soul's awareness of something causes you to physically feel fear. So it didn't remain a soulful experience. Its reaction caused them to be strongly afraid. So much so they scattered out of fear. There's this is a very profound statement in the Gemara. It's not just about that story. Again, it's about the dynamics of how we work. That there's an interface, a spiritual and physical interface that makes up who we are. And sometimes we don't physically see something, but we spiritually sense something, and that causes a physical reaction. And so that's how the Gemara answers this question. He says, I saw it, they didn't saw it, but they didn't see it. Their mazel saw it. They sensed it, and actually, ironically, because I saw it, I was less afraid because I knew what I was seeing. When you don't know what you're seeing, you don't know what it is, the reason behind your anxiety or fear, that's more frightening. So the Gemara goes on and says a pretty interesting. Again, I've shared this before. You may have heard this from me. It's rather entertaining. Amar Ravina says, therefore, Shma Mina. From this you can derive Haiman demibis, a person who's afraid. When you're afraid in general, it could be that, and you don't know why. So it could be that you don't see something, but your mazel sees something. Your soul sees or senses something. What should you do? My takante. So what's the solution? Again, you don't know what it is that you're sensing. You don't know what it is that you're afraid of. My takante, what's the solution? Likri kriya shema. Recite the Shema. So the kriya shema is almost like an umbrella element of protection. In fact, we say the Shema 2 times every day. The morning, there's a Torah obligation to say the Shema in the morning and evening. Right? We say that in the Shema, b'shach b'chov kumecha, when you arise and when you go to sleep. So that's the source of that saying the Shema morning and evening. But then there's We put our hands over our eyes. Mm-hmm. We put our hands over our eyes for added focus. For added focus. When we walk through it, we do the Shema shul a couple times during the service. Put our hands over our eyes. Depends when, right? So that's a good point. So not always, like when we say the Shema when the Torah was brought out, we say the Shema in the middle of the Musaf. The custom is not to cover one's eyes, but we say it. What's that? Yeah, but also when we take out the Torah, we say the Shema. Yeah, then the idea is, I don't know exactly why we cover the eyes specifically only those times, not other times. The idea is during the times of an obligation, because the Shema is the core of Jewish faith, so therefore we cover our eyes to allow for maximum intense intention of these words. But there's a third time we say the Shema, and that's when we go to sleep at night. There's something called Kriya Shema Shalamita, the Kriya Shema upon going to sleep. And the Kriya Shema upon going to sleep is not a Torah obligation, but rather that's for additional protection. There's this, again, a mystical idea that at night, just as there's physical darkness, there's certain spiritual darkness and certain powers that may exist. So there's certain powers that may exist. So therefore, we recite the Shema for that added protection. So that's whatever. I don't want to go down the road. The point is that saying Shema when you lie down is not halachically accurate. It's at nighttime. That's the Beis Shammai's opinion, but the Beis Hillel's opinion, which we follow, is morning and evening. So that's when you say Kriya Shema at night is not the fulfillment of B'shach B'cha. That's not the reason for it. The reason for it is because of protection against whatever negative forces. And so this idea of Shema is protection. So here too, the Gemara is saying that if a person feels a sudden onset of fear and can't explain it, what the best to do is say the Shema. What if a person is in a place where you can't recite the Shema? A place where you can't recite the Shema, like a bathroom or a place of filth, a place of dirt. There's certain places you can't say the Shema. You can't say God's name. What's that? So you're allowed to say in the airport. But I'm saying there's certain places of filth where there were either very bad smell. You shouldn't recite God's name in a place with a very bad smell, or in a bathroom, or in a place where there's like a mikvah, a place where there's nakedness. So what do you do then? So it says yes, move away, move 4 cubits away, 6 to 8 feet away. So whatever energy there is, you could literally move away from it. And then the Gemara gives the final statement. I don't know if this Gemara is saying this tongue in cheek. I don't know. The Gemara says, and if you don't have the option of moving away, lema hachi. This is what you should say. Iza de beitapchi shmeina minoi, which means the goat in the slaughterhouse is fatter than I am. The Gemara says. Tell whatever entity that is that's bothering you, say, don't pick on the goat in the slaughterhouse. There's fatter, there's better meat out there than me. That's how the Gemara concludes. So I don't want to get too caught up. I'm sure there's commentary on this last line of the Gemara. But what is the Gemara? The point of this Gemara shares a very profound idea, which is that there's a certain spiritual subconscious that is part of our part of our identity. And the spiritual subconscious affects our actual consciousness. Now, today, this concept is very familiar, right? Because today we live in with modern psychology. We are very familiar with the idea of subconscious and how subconscious affects us consciously. So a person may be afraid of heights, and they don't know why. And maybe it's because, who knows? Maybe it's because when they go up at a certain height, their subconscious kicks in a memory or an experience or something that triggers them. They don't know that memory. They're not thinking of it, but it causes me to be afraid of heights. Right? There's a lot. I mean, Freud built a whole philosophy based on the fact that memories, which we don't even know about, and which cause the way we think and how we feel. So the concept of subconscious is, people think we came up with a couple hundred years ago. The Mishnah says the Gemara knew about this 2,000 years ago. Basically, that's what the Neil is saying. So there's a certain spiritual subconscious. The mazel, which is subconscious, senses something, and that causes them to be actually afraid. Let's bring this all back to our Mishnah. Our Mishnah now, we can appreciate the Mishnah, which says a heavenly voice emanates from Har Sinai. And anytime we come across a heavenly voice, is basically, again, the question was, if we don't hear it, what's the point of it? Well, the answer is, we may not physically hear it, but our mazel hears it. Or maybe if we work on ourselves a little bit more, our mazel can be in tune with it. So certain divine messages which send signals to our neshama every day. And therefore the idea of where it comes from is not that relevant. In other words, that it emanates from Mount Sinai is, I don't believe it means that if you're closer there, you're more likely to hear it. I don't believe that's what it means. I believe it means there's a reason it's coming from Mount Sinai. It has to do with the symbolism of Mount Sinai. And therefore, Mount Sinai is more symbolic of the location. But, we're not talking about physical sound waves. It was physical sound waves, and go closer, you'll hear it. That's not what this is about. This is about coming from the idea of Har Sinai, what Mount Sinai represents, which is the gift of Torah. And the energy of Torah, the gift of Torah. And therefore, the Torah tells there's a message that the Torah that comes forth from Har Sinai. It's a message which our neshama hears, and the neshama hears it, our mazel hears it, and that allows us to be inspired even if we don't physically hear this sound. And what is the message? Okay, so now we appreciate this idea of this heavenly voice. And this idea of maybe we can even explain, I don't know, maybe moments we have in life in which there's this sudden feeling of either inspiration or fear. Sometimes may have a feeling which inexplicable. We can't really explain why or where this came from. It's not just read an article or something that happened. I just suddenly am, could be as I'm walking, as I'm sitting, whatever it is. I could have a feeling, and maybe there's a certain message which my neshama needs to hear. And these are not negative things. They're not meant to frighten us. They're meant to somehow motivate us. What is the message here? I feel like we're going to have to revisit this Mishnah because there's so much more to get to. But what is the message of the Mishnah? Oy lahem labrias me'al boina shel Torah. Woe to the creations for the shame of Torah. Shekol mi she'eino oisik b'Torah nikra nasa. So I want to focus on one more idea here, and that is the word oisik b'Torah. Oisik b'Torah means toiling in the Torah. And what's the significance of toiling in the Torah versus studying Torah? So oisik, which means toiling, is also the same word as someone who is a Baal Asik, someone who owns a business. And that is that when you are the owner of a business, then you know that you're not just trying to fill up time. You're actually putting your effort into using your wisdom to turn what you're doing into a profit. That this is going to benefit you. This is going to help you. You're constantly trying to come up with new ideas, new ways, new methods in being successful. In the business, you want to be successful. So Torah has to be seen the same way. A person has to study Torah as you would if you were to start a business. Which means ask yourself, how is the Torah that I'm studying going to turn me into a success as a human being? This is unfortunately what can happen is that we separate the Torah study from who we are as a human being and our behavior and our impact on the world. No, I know as a Jew, I should study Torah. So I'll check off that box. I'll study 20 minutes a day. Maybe I'll gain some more files in the database of information. But that's not but it's not, I don't necessarily make the connection between the Torah I study and my success as a human being and my success as a Jew. So that's the idea of someone who's maybe studying Torah, but not osik b'Torah. He doesn't toil in it to connect it to his way of life, which is one of the reasons the commentaries point out why it says that the voice, heavenly voice, emanates from where? Har Chorev. Har Chorev. It could have said Mount Sinai, which is a more common name. Har Chorev. Chorev is connected to the word sword. Why sword? So one of the ideas of Har Sinai being called Har Chorev is they want us to see the Torah as a sword. In other words, you can see it as a weapon, but the point is as a tool that is being used in how I engage my life and how I battle the challenges of life. The sword is a weapon to battle against one's enemies. The Torah should be seen as the tool or the weapon to battle my adversaries in life. The inner challenges, the inner forces which seem which challenge me, which challenge my behavior. So then I have to see the Torah as the weapon of choice to overcome the challenges of life. But often we don't think that way. We think of Torah as just a topic which we happen to study a little bit. When it comes to the difficulties of life, well, then I turn to I turn to my self-fortitude or to other techniques or wisdoms out there. A person has to see the Torah as the sword that which one uses to make their life better. Just conclude this idea. And this is the meaning of that the Torah is embarrassed, ashamed. Har Sinai says Torah is ashamed, not of someone who's not studying Torah. That's perhaps certainly true. But this is talking about someone who is studying Torah, but not recognizing and appreciating the value of Torah. That the Torah is meant to be the path of life that clarifies life for me and helps me overcome obstacles in life. And this is the significance of this heavenly voice. And again, the point is not just to lament. The point is to inspire. And this heavenly voice is meant to inspire us to see Torah properly and to study Torah properly. I will, God willing, continue this Mishnah perhaps sometime down the road because there's a lot more that we didn't get to. And there's a lot about Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, the author of this Mishnah, that we didn't get to. So God willing, we will revisit this Mishnah at some point in a future class. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.